Love of the Sea. Prologue. The candle sputtered as Pamela opened the worn tome. The pages were curling, and the painted illustrations were smudged from curious fingers. She settled into the overstuffed chair next to the fire grate. "Come on, then." Pamela patted her knee. "It's time for a story." Cormack trotted over and lay on the woven rug. His chubby feet tapped the floor as he swung his legs up and down. "Tell me about the mermaids again, Pamela." She chuckled and held up the book. "Already ahead of you, dear. Long ago, the gods brought life to the world and all the creatures in it. Poseidon wanted to show the gods that he was the best creator, and so he made mer-people in his own image. The other gods were so impressed by Poseidon's works that they crowned him king of the gods. One god was jealous and felt that he could form something better, but no matter how hard he tried, his creatures all melted back to mud. This god was Cataramenos, the cursed one. Realizing that he could not beat Poseidon, he chose to steal his creation instead. Cataramenos dove deep into the realm of the mer-people and tricked one of the tribes into coming on land. He coaxed them with the beauty of green trees and plentiful fauna to hunt. He helped mold their bodies so they could stay on the land, producing the first humans. As a last affront to Poseidon, he gave them little seeds from the stars so they would one day pass on from their flesh and be immortal like the gods. Poseidon was furious when he discovered what Cataramenos had done. Unfortunately, the humans could not go back to the sea after living on land for so long, nor were they willing to give up their new claim to immortality. As punishment, Poseidon cut the humans off from the wellspring, rendering them blind and dumb to magic. The mer-people wept for their lost kin, and soon the humans forgot about their former lives in the sea. For many years the humans and the mers fought, as the humans were filled with the false superiority that Cataramenos had poisoned them with. They believed themselves to be equal to the gods, and that all the world was theirs for the taking. The land, the sea, the air, and all the things in it. The mers would tear down their ships and eat the sailors, warning the humans to stay away from their watery kingdoms. Even Poseidon raised his hand on occasion to beat back the human ego, sending squalls that tore ships asunder and sent wailing sailors to the deep abyss. After a time, the mer-people were defeated, as the humans kept building larger and stronger ships. No longer could they pierce the hulls with their claws and rent the lumber to splinters. In fact, humans would sometimes catch the mers, forcing them to grant wishes, or worse, curse them to a half-life bound on land. Eventually, the humans turned away from the cursed one, as his path only led to destruction and death. Those who find favor with Poseidon are able to wheedle tiny drops of magic from the ancient wellspring. Today, these are the practitioners of the White Veil and other shadowy clans who understand the ancient ties we rejected so long ago. Though never will humans again know the true might of the wellspring, as we are all stained with the sins of the cursed one, and seek the forgiveness of Poseidon and his pure waters of the sea. It is believed today that there are no mers left in the world, and if there are, that Poseidon has hidden them well. They say that if a human is able to shed his ego, relinquish his immortal soul, and enter the watery kingdoms in peace, that the curse will be broken, and the humans and mers will be one people, at peace once more. Pamela closed the book and set it aside. Cormac's eyes were wide as he came out of his childish imaginings. He curled himself into a sitting position and grabbed one of his toy wooden boats. "I shall find the mer-people," he declared, waving the boat in the air. "I will be a great sailor someday and be the very first to find them." Pamela ruffled his hair. I'm sure you'll find all sorts of kingdoms and peoples when you grow up, lad. Cormack scowled at her teasing words. She drew him up by the elbow. His body was heavy and showing the first signs of cultish adolescence. To bed with you, she sighed as she steered him to the great four-poster. You can have more adventures tomorrow. He clambered up onto the bed, and Pamela pulled up the heavy quilts. Cormac rolled his eyes up to her. Don't worry, Pamela. I promise I'll visit you and write you letters. Pamela's eyebrows rose. What on earth are you talking about? No, under the sea. Cormac laughed. When I find the Mers, I'll still visit you and write every day. She smiled and kissed his forehead. Dream of your Mers, lad, but be careful they don't gobble you up. Cormac nodded, a yawn escaping his lips. Good night, Pamela. Good night, lad. Chapter 1. Beyond the safe harbor of Paradyne, far below the trade routes of ships, lay the ancient kingdoms of Mers. The reefs glittered with glimpses of their shimmering scales, teasing sailors and dredging up the old stories. One such Mer was the fierce Asrai, cloaked in crimson scales and scarlet hair. She lived in the reef just beyond the safe waters of Paradyne's fishing shoals. Her mentor and only companion, Ileana the Sea Hag, drilled her above the rainbow of corals. She sought to mold Asrai, the daughter of a great ruler, into the great hag she was destined to be. Their booming water pulses had sent all the fish into hiding and made the waters choppy for sailors above. Again! The sea hag whipped her comb, sending a small water pulse to smack Asrai on the cheek. Asrai beat her tail hard, her body growing weary. She used the glare of the high afternoon sun to reflect light off her scales and temporarily blind her opponent. When lit, she resembled a burning ember suspended in water. Asrai waited until the sea hag flinched and darted her eyes away before performing the swift dive. Not enough power! Another water pulse smacked Asrai, preventing her from completing the dive bomb. The sea hag shook her head and let us break for food. You are clearly growing tired. The sea hag settled on a brain coral, waiting for crabs to scuttle within reach. Asrai took deep breaths and slid her comb back into her hair. She flicked her tail as she lounged on a large sponge. The sea hag twirled her comb between her fingers. There are no second chances in Drom. She pointed the comb at Asrai. Each move must be performed with precision. Errors on your part can mean death. Asrai shook her head and snipped some brown seaweed with her claws. Yes, I know, Ileana. I am all that is left for Sulu. I cannot lose. We train every day. I am more than ready to take what is mine. Indeed. The sea hag shifted on the coral and settled her gaze on Asrai. We cannot wait any longer. The time has come for you to reclaim your title. The water is becoming warmer again, Asrai mused, allowing the tide to push her hand in the gentle current. The sea hag nodded. Yes, signaling the beginning of a new season. The season you are at last a grown Mer. We must find you a mate, so you can return to Sulu. There is a small tribe not far from here, only a day's swim. I have already found a suitable mate. It is a matter of winning him. Asrai rolled onto her stomach. The sea hag rubbed her forehead. Oh, my child, you have never even met another Mer. Asrai snared a parrotfish with her claws, ignoring the sea hag's plea. I am certain. He is the one who will expand my wellspring tenfold. I cannot return to Sulu alone, and I need more than a common Mer to unlock my true magic. Not this sailor prince business again. The sea hag rolled her eyes. You must rule with a Mer at your side, or have you forgotten who you are? She drew herself up, glaring at the sea hag. Never. Cormac leaned over the railing, gripping onto the rigging. The afternoon sun warmed his tanned face, and the cool, salty spray of the sea misted over his skin. A gull screamed overhead, He looked up and grinned. Anita was starting to meander toward the fishing buoys. He let go of the manila ropes and jogged back to the helm, turning her with ease. The waves swept the boat further out to sea before Cormack dropped anchor. King Dominic had scores of complaints from the sailors about Cormack being out at all hours with their fishing ships. As the Crown Prince, the sailors hardly had the ability to stop him, nor could they say no to his kind, though cheeky, requests to try his hand at fishing or find a more advantageous shoal. The single-mast boat Anita was then built for his 18th birthday. Cormack clambered onto the railing again and plunged into the sapphire waves. The water was brisk, but it felt good on his sun-kissed skin. Cormack came up for air and slicked his hair out of his face. He dove again, heading toward one of the sandbars to look for seashells and other bits of oceanic treasure. A large clamshell was his prize this day. Cormack pushed off the ground, sand clouding around him as he surfaced for air. Something slipped from his grip, glittering as it fell toward the ocean floor. He drew long breaths, examining the clamshell. As he did so, he noticed that his finger was bare. His crest ring had slipped off while he was digging in the sand. Cormack slipped the shell into the small rucksack tied to Anita for his finds and dove back down to the sandbar to search for his ring. The water clouded as he flung sand all around him. He was sure the ring could not be far, as it was his first dive of the day. Cormack came up again for air and cursed his fruitless search. He swam back to Anita and climbed the rope ladder on the side of the boat. His wet hands mixed with the dried salt on the ropes and made a white paste. He wiped his hands clean on his breeches once aboard. The sun lowered, late afternoon sun creeping by. He leaned his elbows on the railing, looking into the sparkling waters. Time was slipping through his fingers, as always. Soon it would be time to turn about and head into the docks. Asrai hid behind the rudder of the boat. She had been holding on to it, allowing it to drag her through the water as Cormack sailed. She crawled along the side of the boat, trying to get a better view. Her needle-like claws dug into the wooden hull. When Cormack surfaced for air, something glittery fell from his hands. Asrai dove. It tumbled down the sandbar into deeper waters. She plucked the large gold ring and looked up to see Cormack hunting around in the sand. The delight was wiped from his face. His fingers were frantic as he searched. She clutched the ring to her chest. Excitement surged through her with the thought of revealing herself and presenting this human with his lost treasure. But she could not. It was easy for a human to like a mermaid while in the sea, but eventually he would leave. Asrai returned to huddle against the rudder, the ring safe in her fist. Finally, she had proof to present to the sea hag. Through the ripples, Asrai could make out his form leaning over the deck. A passion burned in her stomach that made her want to breach like a foolish dolphin. But she steeled herself and held on to the boat, watching him from under the waves. The ring was hard, the gems scratching her palm as her grip tightened. A low thrum escaped her throat, and a nearby school of fish darted away. Soon, my sailor. Cormack stood at the helm, playing with his instruments. A gold compass, an ornately engraved sextant. The items brought him joy as he embarked on mock adventures in the harbor. Today his mind was stunted with anxiety. His cousin Peter had soured his morning with a sly grin, informing him of an evening meeting in the map room. Now, with the loss of his ring, it was turning out to be an unlucky day indeed. He turned about, flustered that none of his toys were appealing. Shouts of the sailors and the clank of chains soon became audible. Cormack ran his hand through his hair as Anita bumped into place. The sailors waved. Cormack tossed down the dock line, and one of the sailors helped him secure Anita. "The wind be fair today. A fine day to sail," the sailor chatted as he chewed on the end of a weathered pipe. Cormack nodded. "Indeed, yet the day is not in my favor." Just as well," the sailor muttered, clanking his pipe against his teeth as he chewed. "Lucky you came in. There's mermaids about today." Cormack jerked his head. "Real mermaids? You bet your sweet soul on Poseidon." The sailor grinned at Cormack, the pipe clenched in his teeth. He jerked his head at an enormous black galleon. The merchant ship from Denarius said they encountered him a ways out from the harbor. Real mermaids, Cormack whispered. Aye, the sailor nodded. Real mermaids with all the real danger, your majesty. Cormack tilted his head. I have yet to see one. Besides, the tale of Cataramenos states that if you come to them in peace, no harm shall come to you. The sailor shook his head. But what man would take such a risk without a sweet reward? You catch a mermaid, the wishes are yours. Cormac furrowed his brow. Wishes? Like a cluricon? Not the same, not the same. He waved his hand. They be little tricksters and twist your wishes to dark things, no. Mermaid wishes be fine and true. Real mermaids. Cormac looked out into the harbor again. The sailor chuckled to himself while walking further down the dock. Cormac was torn, the lust for salt and sea igniting once more. His hands fidgeted, his eyes on the tight knot on the dock line. He sighed and ran his hand through his hair. Tomorrow, Poseidon, grant me sweet winds tomorrow. Cormac headed down the docks, toward the grassy shore. The castle gleamed in the late light of the day. The blue banners of Paradine fluttered high in the turrets. 2 guards leaned against the limestone wall, their halberds propped next to them. They chatted, but straightened and grabbed their halberds as Cormac approached. They saluted, their chins parallel with the ground. Good evening, your highness, they barked as Cormac picked his way toward the kitchen garden. He nodded to them. At ease, men. Good evening. The guards loosened their stance but remained standing. They waited until Cormac had disappeared through the rugged archway of the scullery entrance, before picking up the thread of their conversation. The scent of marinade and fresh-baked bread hit Cormac's nose as he entered the kitchen. The air was thick and sweltering. His sandy blonde hair became damp and clung to his temples. And here comes trouble, Pamela, the plump head cook, cheered as Cormac scoured the staging table for scraps. She stopped stirring the iron cauldron and turned to him, sauce-stained spoon still in hand. Cormac sniffed. What are you making? She turned to her cauldron and resumed her ministrations. The boar that the soldiers caught yesterday. She turned her head to look at him. The servants have been getting antsy looking for you. Better get to your things. Cormac bit back a groan. I suppose, if I must. Cheer up, dear. Pamela pointed her spoon at a basket covered with a linen. I'm sure it's not all that bad. She winked, and Cormac lifted the linen. Inside the grass-woven basket were fresh-baked oatcakes, her specialty. He grinned at her. Thanks, Pamela. You're the best. Off with you now. She shook her head, smiling as Cormac grabbed a handful of cakes and bounded out of the kitchen. The sea hag set down her jeweled comb. The water had changed. Asrai was home. Where have you been? The sea hag's eyes flashed as Asrai peeked from the cave opening. Don't tell me you were swooning over that stupid sailor again. The sea hag picked up her comb and slid it into her hair. It disappeared. You're better than that. Asrai pumped her tail, stirring the sandy floor into little clouds. But this one is different. The sea hag laughed. All sailors are the same. You will realize that in time. For now, we must prepare to journey to the western wilds and find you a real mate. Asrai's hands trembled as she opened her fist, revealing a gold ring encrusted with yellow diamonds and crowned with a lapis lazuli. The center was bare gold, engraved with the runic P for Paradine. The sea hag snatched it up, holding it between her claws, her eyes gleaming. He dropped it while diving for shells this afternoon. Asrai tried to grab the ring back, but the sea hag turned away. A sailor prince? How absurd! The ring was far too large for her spidery fingers, so she began weaving it into a lock of her hair. Asrai sighed and settled onto the sandy floor, her tail fins curling and uncurling. I've been watching him for 3 moons. He has his own boat that sails around close to the harbor. He wears fine clothes and is not rough like the other sailors. That may be so, but he is still a human. You cannot foul your wellspring with blood of the cursed one. The sea hag settled back onto her stone ledge, her fingers toying with the new bauble in her hair. He is not like the other humans. Asrai turned her comb. He is of the sea. Never have I seen a human so entranced by the tide and the treasures within. He does not talk as if all were his, the way other humans do. Just the previous day, I watched him free a dolphin from a human fishing net and lose the entire catch. But he cared not once he knew the dolphin was free and safe. The sea hag sniffed. Do not forget all I have taught you, all that you have worked toward. You will need a strong mer at your side to create the new tide. That is why I need more than just a mer at my side. Asrai swished her tail. That is why I need more than just a mer at my side. Asrai swished her tail. I need a champion who can crack open my wellspring tenfold, like that of Fred's Melger. The sea hag whirled about. Do not speak that name. Asrai stuck out her chin. If I am to take my place in Sulu, I must have the peacemaker spoken of in those ancient tales. And you believe this sailor prince, is he? The sea hag examined the ring once more. Don't worry. Asrai's eyes flashed. He will be. Cormack slowed his gait as he neared the top of the stairs. The oatcakes were warm in his hands, but the expectations of his father blew out the fire in his heart. The orange light of a day's end blazed through the arrow-slit windows. He could hear the faint roll of the waves breaking as a warm breeze filtered through the hall, taunting him. The doors to the map room were heavy mahogany wood, carved with the talents of war. The archer, the swordsman, the gunner, and the horseman. Cormac rested his hand on the cold black iron handle. His jaw tightened as he pushed open one of the heavy doors. King Dominic, his faithful General Weston, and Cormac's cousin Peter gathered around the large map table in the center of the room. Cormac swallowed the rising tension in his gut. He made a smart bow. Good evening, father. He kept his gaze on the king's chest. King Dominic nodded. And good evening to you, my son. Come. Sit here at the peninsula of Umber. Cormac did as he was bid. The table was an oblong round, the surface concave. It scooped down to reveal a map of the world with sculpted forests, mountains, and the sea. The map was littered with figurines of soldiers and horses. Cormac slid into the chair closest to the district King Dominic had indicated. To what do I owe the pleasure of an invitation to your map room today, father? Cormac's hands fidgeted on the lip of the table. The king's eyes were drawn to the bare tan line on Cormac's hand. He scowled. Where is your crest? Cormac froze. He slid his hands into his lap. Oh, I must have forgotten it. Forgotten your crest? King Dominic's face reddened. His face crinkled further. How could you possibly forget that which is all you are? Peter smirked at Cormac. He twirled his plain gold ring around his finger on the lip of the table. Weston's eyes darted between the boys, but said nothing. What am I to do with you? The rage seeped from King Dominic. He blew the air from his pursed lips and rubbed his face, making a strange whistling sound. What am I to do with you? Cormac kept his gaze on the table, his eyes flitting among the figurines. He knew there was no suitable excuse, much less a lie. He waited for the subject to change. We'll have the jeweler cast another. King Dominic shook his head. His eyebrows knitted together. He slapped his hands on the lip of the table, making Cormac jump. Peter snickered. The king sent a scowl his way. Quiet, boy. Peter bit back a scowl. Yes, uncle. King Dominic picked up a figurine of a carriage. He placed it at the border of Paradine. Yes, well, we have great matters to attend to. Great matters. Father, if it is another one, please. I said quiet. The king roared. He picked up another figurine, painted black with a gold crown. He placed it in Umber and did not look up from the map. That dog Richard is skulking about our borders once more. Umber is currently under siege. We are able to send in supplies through the forests here. Cormac stared at the map without seeing while his father chattered, moving figurines about on the board. His hands fidgeted in his lap as his thoughts returned to that afternoon. The memory of the sailors speaking of Denarians and mermaids made his chest tighten with excitement. A smile curled his lips. "And so I have arranged for a most special guest. She is due to arrive tomorrow." What? Cormack blinked, his senses returning to the map room, away from the sea. Peter rolled his eyes. King Dominic shook his finger at Cormac. "The Princess of Caraway is arriving tomorrow. We have planned a welcome feast in her honor. You will be there to greet her personally." Cormac bit back a groan. "Another of your princesses, father? How many has it been? A dozen? 10 dozen? Now you listen here." King Dominic's face began to turn red once more. "You are my son, the crown prince of the most powerful kingdom in all the world. And as my son, you shall be wed and continue the proud lineage of Paradine, and that is that." Peter toyed with a figurine of a horse near Altru's. "Yes, dear cousin. After all, we are running out of princesses to woo." Cormac rolled his eyes. The king slapped the table again. "Enough!" he bellowed, his face fully red now. "You will be there tomorrow night, and so help me if you are not. I will have every last guard, woman, and child seeking you so I can tear you limb from limb. Understood?" "Yes, father," Cormac whispered. He kept his gaze on the table. His heart clenched. "I will be there, father." King Dominic leaned back in his chair, his face returning to normal. "Good. See that you are." Peter toyed with the carriage. "Rest assured, uncle. I will ensure our guest experiences all the glory Paradine has to offer." Yes. The king waved his hand. "Pomp and all that's all taken care of." He ensnared Cormac's gaze. "Tread careful with this one, boy. The Princess of Caraway is a proud creature. We cannot afford to insult her or her people." Cormac's eyebrows rose. "I will be sure to take care, father." King Dominic deflated. Good. Weston nodded to Cormac, then to Peter. They were dismissed. Cormac lagged behind, but Peter waited for him in the hall. His eyes glinted. "Dear cousin, I do hope you will not be meeting our esteemed guest in such a fashion." He raked his eyes over Cormac's sailing tunic and stained breeches. "If she is to be my betrothed, then she should know me as I am." Cormac edged past him. "Yes." Peter's voice was acid, burning into Cormac's back as he strode off. "If only you were all that you are, your highness."